Are you tired of the mainstream media lying to you every single day? You are not alone. Millions of other Americans are sick of the corporate media fake news of the MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political. Every single one of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all Team DNC. But now you have another option in independent creators like here on the CASHLOREN show. Well, we will go and we will expose the deep state, these unelected bureaucrats, and the mainstream media, along with the Democrats and their friends in the Rhino Uniparty, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Get the facts on the CASHLOREN show. I am your host, America's Truth Teller, shining a bright red light on the corruption and the hoaxes from the mainstream media and the Democrat Party. You're not going to want to miss a single moment. Join the American First Movement Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the CASHLOREN show.
In 2025, we find ourselves in a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all three of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service, it's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The nation is still suffering and still mourning after the loss of Charlie Kirk. I think many of us are still trying to process exactly what happened and how it could have happened. We lost a once-in-a-generation man, and man that loved Jesus Christ, that loved his wife and loved his kids. He loved his family. He loved his country. There are very few people that ever come along in this world and have the impact that Charlie Kirk did. And to millions and millions of people's lives were changed for the better for Charlie Kirk. And the main way he did this was simply by having conversations with people. That he was willing to go into the areas that are very hostile, mostly known for colleges, but many other places as well, and was able to have conversations with people that didn't necessarily agree with him. And because of that, he changed the course of our nation. I don't think that if Charlie Kirk had not done what he had done, I don't think Donald Trump is president right now. Just as much like Elon Musk taking over with X. Like those two things outside of Donald Trump's immediate circle probably had the hugest impact on us taking our country back from the communist left. And do not doubt me on this for a single second when I call them the communist left, because that is who they are. We're going to be covering a lot of that today. But the Democrats, they have been taken over by the communists. Plain and simple. I mean, facts just do not care about your feelings. And I believe fully that if they had been able to get Kamala Harris put into our president in 2024, the Democrats would have finished their communist revolution. And all the things that they've been trying to go for, to take away your free speech and to take away your guns, it would have very likely happened. I mean, they were so close under Joe Biden. Remember misinformation and disinformation and hate speech? And they did that intentionally, one, to try to take away your rights, but then also to try to dehumanize you. See, this is the really vile part that the Democrats and the left don't want to talk about, when they always try to use all the same stuff, like somehow there is this equal on the right and the left. You know, both sides say bad things. And that is blatantly another lie from the Democrats, as they are the party of political violence. And when they spent years calling us Nazis and calling us fascists and calling us racists and calling us bigots and, you know, homophobes and transphobes and extreme MAGA Republicans, Democrats knew exactly what they were doing the entire time. They were trying to dehumanize you so that then they could justify violence against you. So that's always how it has to work. First, they dehumanize you, and then they justify violence. And that's exactly what they did to Charlie Kirk. when they called him a fascist and they called him a Nazi, just like Trump for years, they knew what they were doing. As we're going to start going through what the shooter is, more and more information came out, especially with Kash Patel when he went on Fox Day, and the amount of information he gave is absolutely shocking. Is we also now have a timeline. But the ridiculousness, the insanity of the Democrats to try to say that somehow like this shooter who shot Charlie Kirk was somehow one of us, was somehow a MAGA conservative, is so unbelievably absurd that they're that deep in their own bubble, and that the Democrats are so used to lying that they think that would actually fly with the American people. The evidence, of course, overwhelmingly is that it's not. So now that we're back on Monday, and it's great to be with all of you again today, I'm your host, CASHLOREN. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment and hit the repost and help us spread an American First message with your audiences so we can save our country and bring it back to the constitutional republic, as we will expose the Democrat left and make them criteria that are saltier than you-know-who's fries. As Kash Patel, as he went on Fox this morning, he gave a timeline and a lot of information that had not been released yet. And part of this, first to start off with just how amazing and fortunate we are that Kash Patel is now the director of the FBI. Because when you have a new leader like Kash Patel, everything doesn't just magically get turned over. He still has a lot of problems within what we call the deep state, or these unelected bureaucrats that think that they have the right to rule over you. That they think that they get to pick and choose which laws they are and are not going to follow. We saw what happened with, especially the FBI under James Comey and Chris Wray. Not that we need to get into those today, but all of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, as they found all those burn bags, everything that you were never supposed to know about. And now, what do you think would have happened with this shooter if Kash Patel was not in charge of the FBI? I think we all know. Just like with the rest of these radical leftists who went after us, either after innocent kids or after other political figures and people, everything just kind of just disappears. Right? We don't know what happened. Right? We couldn't possibly know their motive. I mean, that's exactly what they've been doing right now. And I think some of that still happened in this. And as Kash Patel denies it, of course, there's no way he talked about something like that publicly. But I think it's very suspicious of some of the details he gives in. But first, to give Kash Patel credit for doing all the things that they didn't want him to do, such as getting involved directly with this case, and him going down and onto the boots on the ground, and then walking the crime scene himself and taking it all in. Of course, they did not want him doing that. And then also found out that there was a picture that was hidden from Kash Patel for 12 hours. And then in addition to that, he made the call that he was going to go and have a press conference, and he was going to release video and photos in this press conference, something that many in the FBI did not want him to do. So let's go through this timeline now, what Kash Patel really gave to the public today, and why what Kash Patel did was not only the right decision, but it led to the capture and the arrest of this left-wing lunatic. Make no mistake, he was a left-wing Antifa lunatic. And how Kash Patel's leadership led to his arrest. So on the 10th, about 12:30, that was when Charlie Kirk was shot. And then now, according to Kash Patel, by 12:39 that day, they already had FBI agents on the ground doing the investigation. So within minutes. And then Kash Patel, he then showed up the very next day. This is, again, something that, according to them, that the deep state did not want him to do, right? They wanted him to stay out and just stay in his fancy office. But Kash Patel and Dan Bongino got directly involved. And I think that, I know that led to the arrest. As much as the Democrats and the left are trying to pretend they're like, it was just kind of a random event. His father brought in his son and the FBI didn't play a part. We're going to prove that's a lie. Again, I swear, if the Democrats' mouths are moving, that means that they are lying. So at 5 p.m., they arrive on the scene. And then so this was, on the 11th, so this is 10 a.m., that they released the first images on the subject. So this was before Kash got there, but this was his decision to start getting this out to the public instead of what they normally do with their silos, is they try to keep everything like inside the FBI, right? They don't ever want to let anything out to the public. They always use classification. I wonder if they had gotten away from it with that, how little we still know right now. And then Kash Patel, he made the decision. So this is within, I think, very shortly after he arrived there, that they were going to do a press conference. And this press conference happened at 8 p.m. this night. Okay, this was Kash Patel's decision, and this directly led to the arrest of the suspect. As Kash Patel did the press conference and then went against his own deep state, the FBI and others, and released videos and images and enhanced images of the subject and asking for the public's help. He had a lot of people against him for doing this and trying to stop all this from happening. But because he did that, directly because of Kash Patel's decision-making, the father recognized the son. And then the father confronted the son. And then a youth pastor and the father were still finding out a lot of the details about how they got from the house into the car and then over to the police station. But at that night, that very night, 10 p.m., that's when the subject was arrested. Okay, directly because of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino's leadership. And then Donald Trump, on the very next day, he came out and he announced to everybody in the morning on on Fox News that they had a suspect in custody. And as more and more information comes out, it looks like this time is we had a couple people who pretended to be the guilty party and then were released. And that led to the unfortunate where Kash Patel suggested that they had him, and they didn't, but they did within a few days, within 33 hours. Now, as they're going and they're doing more investigations, they're digging in deeper, they're finding more information on this that is truly shocking and horrifying because of how people were willing to play along. As now Kash Patel, they're having access to this Discord chat. And it was initially reported that there was 20 members in this Discord chat. Well, Kash Patel announced this morning there is more than 20 people in this Discord chat. And that they are now going through the process of interviewing all these people and then family members and then friends. And I want to point this part out too, because Kash talked about this quite a bit, but people need to understand that they can't just go into these chats and they can't just start arresting people. And there has to be a chain of custody and there has to be warrants. So this evidence that they collect, right, it has to be able to go in front of a prosecutor and a judge and a jury. And if they do this wrong, they can screw up the entire case. And that is why they're moving in the direction they're moving very correctly. Again, thank goodness we have Kash Patel and not Chris Wray. As he said, the investigation is ongoing, and then he wouldn't say if there's going to be more arrests or not, but it sure seems like there could be. I think Don Bongino was talking about, people knew beforehand on what this killer was planning to do. And then the question then becomes, did they believe it or did they not believe it? Because that is what's going to change, if I understand all this correctly, from whether criminal prosecution or not. Because if somebody says something's insanely crazy and you just don't believe them, or I guess from what I understand it, or that, you just kind of think, oh, they're just blowing off steam. That is not criminal from my understanding. But if they knew and they believed it and they didn't say nothing, then they can be in charge of this as well. So they got the search warrants. Then they also found out, and this is from Tyler, the shooter admitted in the Discord that 2 hours later that he was the one that did it. And now Kash Patel and the FBI, they have copies of this, thanks to the roommate, who are still finding out exactly, because he got reported initially that he was a trans and that they were lovers. So this is a biological male who was transitioning to a female, according to initial reports. And now there's some pushback. Maybe that's true, maybe that isn't. I don't know. But the important part is that now he is working with the police. And they turned over all these messages over to the FBI. Also, crucial in all this, what Kash was talking about, is they have access to the cell data into the towers. So this is going to tell them exactly where all the movements were, and then they can find out who he was talking to and where they were located. This is absolutely huge to find out who knew when and knew what. So they also found out that he was doing text messages, and they said from another person. So the Kash Patel hasn't announced yet who this person is or what was in these text messages, only that they happened. And of course, part of the investigation, you have to imagine, but I get the very sneaky suspicion that we're going to see a lot more arrests here very soon. Now we have going on to the Democrats and them trying to pretend that this guy was some kind of right-wing, MAGA extremist. This is one of the dumbest lies the left always tries to tell every time one of these things happen, when these radical leftist activists do one of these very horrible things. The left's first instinct is try to blame, the right. And they're doing that through this family because his family, as far as we can tell, is just a normal everyday family. His father worked with the sheriff's department. His mother works in helping disabled people. They live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. And he has 2 brothers. And then we saw initially from the Daily Mail's article, he just looked like a normal kid. On these early photos, he looked like just a million other nerdy, dorky kids, right, in his room with his computer. And then they pointed out that there was the same backpack and the same shoes in these photos. And then when you get across to the mug sheets and you say now that he looks more radical and he's got the sunken eyes and the dark face and he doesn't look like the kid. So something happened, right? When he was younger versus to when this shooting happened, there's a very radical change in this kid's life. And I think the pretty obvious thing is he got indoctrinated into leftist ideology. And this is exactly what his family is telling now to the FBI and everything that they told us, that the family and friends are telling investigators that he quickly became subscribed to these left-wing ideology. Now, he apparently was very smart, had a very high GPA, and then he was approved to go into college on a very large grant, I think $32,000, if I remember correctly. And that seems to be about the time that everything started to go downhill for, because these colleges, for large part, especially what Charlie Kirk showed, is a lot of times these colleges, they're not there to educate, they're there to indoctrinate. And I feel really terrible for these parents who they think they're sending off their child to go and get an education and that have a great life in the future, to have a great job and a great career, only to return to college to be some kind of like socialist, leftist, communist. It happens over and over and over again. And very likely with him, even though he dropped out, that seemed to be a lot of where this could have started. And I suspect as more information comes out, it's exactly going to lead to that. And then he started getting very involved, like Reddit and Discord and all these other left-wing groups. And remember, too, when the Democrats, when they're trying to push this guy was some kind of right-wing radical, okay, he had all these Antifas on his weapon, not on the weapon itself, but on the bullets. One was the catch fascist. And I want to talk about this for a minute because this is part of what the Democrats are trying to do to these young, impressionable people, is they lie and they call half the country fascists and Nazis over and over and over again. The Democrats are knowing they know they're lying, but they do not care. Because for the Democrats, when they do this, when they dehumanize these people, they're pushing these insane, poor indoctrinated kids to do like this one did, to start either taking a shot or screaming or yelling at conservatives, right? Trying to force them to be not part of society or try to ruin their lives and their careers. See, the Democrats know exactly what to do. And now when they're trying to lie and pretend that they somehow want unity, no one should ever believe that for a single second. When they called you Nazis, when they called you fascists for years, no one should believe for a single moment that now all of a sudden what they want is unity. What the Democrats really want is they don't want to pay the price for what they've done. The Democrats are scared to death that we are like them, and we're not. Remind me how many cities burned after Charlie was shot. How many violent riots were there? There were none. There was peace. People went and they prayed. And they activated an entire generation by taking out Charlie Kirk. Here you go here. And to help bring that point home is that Charlie Kirk, after he lost his life to this assassin, his Turning Point USA is absolutely exploding. As before the assassination, they had 900 college chapters and over 1,200 high school chapters. But after this, the support has been blowing away as his wife went on Rumble, and that was gut-wrenching to watch. But it was also inspiring. She said, you know, if you think this is it, if you think we're giving up now, you are wrong. And part of that, here we go. There was over 37,000 now applications to create new chapters. The Democrats, they have no idea what they have started. They have no idea what's about to happen next. They were already on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. Everyone. And now they push so many more people over to our side of the aisle. Just wait 5 to 10 years from now, from the leaders that are going to start coming up through the ranks and the activists who are going to be on our side. And they're going to point to this moment as the moment when they decided to get involved. Do not doubt me for a single second. There are names right now that no one knows who they are. In 5 to 10 years now, they're going to be household names. Do not doubt for a second. All because the Democrats decided to shoot Charlie Kirk for no other reason because he said words that they don't like. So they lied and they called it hate speech. And they called you Nazis and fascists so the Democrats could justify dehumanizing you to send their pawns, these left-wing radical activists, to come after you. With that, we're way over on a break. When I come back, we're going to talk about J.D. Pritzker and a whole lot as he is also trying to lie to the rest of the Democrats and the rest of the mainstream media, trying to pretend that they didn't demonize half the country. And now all of a sudden they're pretending that they want unity when really they don't want to suffer the consequences of their actions. We're going to play his clips and a whole lot more after this greedy profit break. You're not going to miss that or anything else. This is the Kash Loren Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the CASHLOREN, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the CASHLOREN show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. Well, the Democrats, they have been dehumanizing half this country for years. Ever since they realized that they're starting to lose power, they immediately started calling people racist or bigots or homophobes or transphobes, but now they've taken it even a step further. Is now they're trying to call people Nazis and fascists. And of course, they have this militant arm of the left, the anti-fascists, right? So they militarize their side, and then they put a target on your back. This is the Democrat Party. They are trying to silence you, and now that they worked and they got Charlie Kirk, now they're trying to pretend that they want unity, right? That we need to tone down the political rhetoric. After they have called you a Nazi and fascist for years. Now, when they're scared to death that they're going to face the consequences of their actions, and they are going to face the consequences, not their way, right? Because we are not the party of political violence, but they're going to face the consequences of their actions our way, peacefully and patriotically. They have no idea what they have just started. You pointed out before we went on the break, over 37,000 applications for Turning Point USA now. The young leaders and the activists that are going to be coming to our side, in addition to the Democrats being on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue. They can't run on a single thing. And so they're making the huge political mistake of, instead of trying to run on any single subject, they were still trying to run on hating Donald Trump. Because they've lied for such a long time, calling a fascist and a Nazi, that they may even believe it. But now that they realize the backdraft, they're trying to pretend that they've never said those things. So I have a clip here. This is from J.D. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, who has been putting a target on Trump's back and your back for many years and refusing to enforce their laws. Okay, so here's a clip of him lying, and he's going to say that he has never called any of you or Trump Nazis. Take a listen.
Call Republicans Nazis.
No, I have not. That is completely false. I have never called Republicans Nazis.
I'm glad you cleared that up because there are some.
Well, that's what they'd like to say. They're lying. They're lying.
I'm going to ask you to ask you.
Well, that's not what I called them.
Yes, it is. And we have the video clips to prove it. And part of the way he's going to do this is the way the Democrats, they try to lie to you, is he's saying, well, I've never called them Nazis. But over and over and over again, he created the imaging. He directly compared us. He said that the Republican Party is doing everything that the Nazi Party is doing, everything that Fascist Party is doing. And then you had, combined with that, with all the mainstream media. Okay, so here is J.D. Pritzker now. Here is his other clips and all the things that he had been saying, and that these clips I cut down for time, but this could go on for probably 10 minutes. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if I just kept researching for clips, but here's just a few of them.
The rhetoric that's being used by Donald Trump, the rhetoric that's being used by some of the MAGA extremists, is rhetoric that was used in the 1930s in Germany.
That the Nazis in Germany in the 30s tore down a constitutional republic in just 53 days. It does not take much, frankly, and we have a president who seems hell-bent on doing just that.
We have a very prominent figure who is very closely associated with the president standing up at a presidential rally and giving 2 Nazi salutes in a row. I do not invoke the specter of Nazis lightly, but I know the history intimately. And everything that he has done has been tearing down constitutional democracy. And that's what happened in Nazi Germany. And
when you're talking about Trump being a Nazi.
Those words never came out of my mouth. That is not true, what you just said.
But we just played clips over and over and over again, and that is exactly what he did. Hey, these ghouls on the left, they are so ignorant and arrogant that they think that they have the right to rule over you. And they don't believe in our Constitution for a single second. They think they are better than you. They think they are smarter than you. They have their Ivy League degrees. And they look at the end result, right? They talk all the time about equity being the end result versus equality having opportunity, the right to pursue happiness. Democrats do not believe in that in a single second. The only thing that unites the Democrat Party is hatred. And through that hatred, they then lash out on the other side. And they just lie innocently, like J.D. Pritzker did right there. Right? I've never called them Nazis. But we just show clip after clip after clip where that is exactly what he did. And just like the rest of the mainstream media, whether it be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, other Times, Washington Post, Political or Axios, every single one of them are Team Democrat. They are all in the bag for the DNC. They know what they're doing. They try to brainwash you guys. As first, they all, just like he did, insinuate that you are a Nazi and you are a fascist. And then they get people so mad and so riled up that then they will go and they will do harm. Right? Because if you could stop Hitler, right, what would you do? Right? If you could prevent World War II, that's the imagery that the Democrats know exactly what they're trying to create. And these cowards are too scared to do it themselves. They don't want to end up in prison or facing the death penalty like this kid does. So instead, what they do is they try to radicalize these very young children and lie to them over and over and over again. And it takes a very strong mind to resist, and the weak ones are not going to. And so they tell them in the classroom how the other side is fascists and Nazis, and then they do on TV all day, the other side is fascists and Nazis, and then you have Hollywood, and you have all these musicians and all this other kind of social constructs trying to all call the other half of the country, fascists and Nazis. And then you get some young kid who's furious, who thinks that he's saving the country from fascists and Nazis, and then takes a shot. And now Charlie Kirk is gone. They know what they're doing. This was an intentional act to dehumanize you. I cannot stress this enough. And we warned for years on deaf ears, but the Democrats, they did not stop. We said over and over again, when you're doing this, you're going to radicalize these kids and you're going to put people in danger. Of course, the Democrats, they knew that then, they knew that now, and they continue to do that. And now they're scared to death because the country has turned against them. And so now they're trying to pretend that they want unity. Okay, in a single second, they will start calling you Nazis and fascists again. As soon as the temperature dies down, the Democrats have not changed. There is no uniting with these people. There is no peace with these people. Okay, we must fight this war, and we must win it legally and patriotically. At the ballot box, and on shows like here on the CASHLOREN show. And we're now over 5,000. So really appreciate everyone watching this show. You can take a moment, repost, and help us spread an American First message we can defeat the left every day at 8 p.m. with using only half my brain just to make it fair. Now, the Turning Point USA is going to continue. Okay, we're not going anywhere. In fact, we're growing at an exponential rate. And one of the great honors, I think, was for JD Vance as he hosted the Charlie Kirk show today. And he had many guests on there talking about all kinds of different subjects and what Charlie meant to them. It was emotional to watch. You know, as I am, and I'm sure many others are still processing and still grieving what happened. But he went on and he said the things that needed to be said, like we're talking about here, because JD Vance, he went off today, and that this insanity from not only some of the left, but some of the people on the right now calling for unity with these same communists who want you dead. And none of that has changed. The Democrats, they have the only thing that unites them is hatred. And that hatred drives them to want and have power over you. They're still going to call you all these names. You cannot subjugate to these people. And that's what they need. The Democrats need you to give up your will to fight. Again, legally and patriotically, not calling for violence. The left, of course, try to clip that stuff. But when we say we're going for war, we're talking about doing it within the bounds of the law. We're talking about doing shows like this and having a conversation just like Charlie Kirk did. Because the thing about the left is they cannot win on the field of ideals. They can't win a debate and they can't win a discussion. They know this because they can't be on the right side that everybody agrees with, except for the very small percentage of the left. So then instead what they have to do is they have to try to dehumanize you. They have to try to shut you up, right? Calling you a racist or calling you a bigot, calling you a homophobe, a transphobe, a white nationalist, an extreme MAGA Republican, right? Anything to try to silence you in the left's mind, because they've convinced themselves that they are right no matter what. That if then you either have to agree with them or you're all those things. And the irony of that is it's actually the left who's guilty of everything they're accusing you of being. It's the left who are racist. It's the left who are bigots. Right? It all comes from the left side. They try to accuse you, they try to shut you up, and that doesn't work. Then they started ratcheting it up a notch. Now they started calling you Nazis and they call you fascists. And JD Vance is 100% right here. There is no unity. There is no unity of people who scream at children over their parents' politics. Like what happened to JD Vance, as he shared when he went to Disneyland. And some insane liberal started yelling at his kid. These people are unhinged and lunatics. There is no unity with people who keep lying about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder, right? To justify what they did. This wasn't some right-wing MAGA. This was a left-wing lunatic that was radicalized by the left. And there's a lot more out of them. Not all of them are that violent, but the ones who try to scream at you online or in person, or who don't want you going out to restaurants, or try to make sure that you can't have a job or have a career, unless you agree with them, of course, and try to make sure the most radical leftists are the ones that get brought up into society, right? To make sure that the Democrats control Congress, and the Democrats control the president, and the Democrats control the SCOTUS. I mean, that's all they care about is power. There's no unity of people that want to harass. There's no unity with people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. We have endless videos from the left, right? Laughing, exciting, ecstatic that Charlie Kirk is gone. These are some of the worst people imaginable. There is no unity. There is only war to fight to save our country. That is the option that we have now. As we've always been the side that we just want to go to work, right? We want to have our marriage, we want to have our kids, we want to raise them, we want them to have kids and have a good education, have a better life than we did. It's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness because it's also made many on our side pacifists. at least in the world of politics. I mean, Christians have a very low vote rate. Right? Gun owners often do not vote. Now that we're waking up, hopefully all that has changed, and we start getting a lot more of the Scott Presslers in the world, and the people who just said, you know what, I've had it. I can't do this anymore. Enough is enough. And that's essentially what started this show. I was in a very similar boat. I'm just a normal guy. And I couldn't take it anymore. I realized that we have to stand up and we have to fight for our country, or we're going to lose it. There's millions and millions more out there. But then we have CNN's Chrissy Hunt, who is now so upset that J.D. Vance said what he said. That J.D. Vance said what needed to be said. Chrissy Hunt, the propagandist for the CNN, who pretends to be a journalist on TV, says this: how do we get off our phones and back to our real lives? Where can we see each other as we are? Well, we do see each other as we are. We see the Democrats now for who they really are. They're not able to lie to you anymore. They're not able to pretend that they're these middle-of-the-road leftists. They're not able to pretend that they care about workers, or they care about your rights, or they care about your freedom of speech. The mask of the Democrats are off. They left the border wide open. They let tens of millions of illegal aliens come into this country. They locked you in your house. They printed trillions of dollars for no reason and caused massive amounts of inflation, and prices to skyrocket. And of course, what the Democrats always do, the same thing over and over again when this falls in their face, is they immediately blame Republicans. Nonsense. And enough American people realize that. Now that, Donald Trump won the popular vote. 77 million of you voted for him, even after they called him all those nasty names, even after all the fake hoaxes from the civil and the criminal trials. None of that worked. Because all of you now, thanks to independent creators like here on the CASHLOREN show, can see through their garbage. And they had a whole lot more on J.D. Vance and what he came, including Stephen Miller, had some great things to say, and that Donald Trump is also picking up. We're going to cover that and a whole lot more, but I'm way over on a break again. So we'll be back. We'll talk about that and a lot more here on the CASHLOREN show after this greedy profit break.
The spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the CASHLOREN, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the Kash Loren Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. One of the things to do when we go to breaks is try to catch up on anything that's happened, because sometimes you never know when news is going to break. And during our last segment, we had where Charlie Kirk, they're holding another vigil for him. And these evil, dark Democrats, they're trying to take it over and start screaming all this free Palestine and pro-Palestine crap. But we have so many young patriots now that have woken up and said, no, enough is enough. So while the left, the only thing that unites them is hatred, and hatred for a country and hatred for you, the American people, our side's built differently. Our side starts chanting USA, 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 and drowns out these Democrat domestic terrorists. Every single one of these evil scumbags that hold up these Palestine flags and shout things like free Palestine, they should be sent back to the Middle East, lose their citizenship if they are, and be gone from our country. If you hate our country that much, then don't be here. Go home. Go back to your third world hellhole. We don't need you, and we don't want you. We are so fortunate that we live in the United States of America, especially now in this day and age. People have no idea how good they have it with things that we take granted every day. Electricity, heat, AC, cars, planes, cell phones, internet. I mean, you have the access to the world's knowledge in your hand. And now with AI, the amount that you can research and cover, instead, how many people waste that on dancing videos or other stuff? But if you want to learn something, you can do it in seconds. I mean, what used to take hours can now be done in minutes, thanks to the advancements in technology. But these people that are here in this country hate all of it because all they care about is power. It's truly just horrible and infuriating, especially when they can't even just leave us alone. That's all we really want. Let us mourn. If you hate Charlie Kirk, fine. I don't understand you, but hate him. Stay home. Let people grieve. Because millions were inspired by him. And these are times we're kind of get distracted for a second, because this is a G-rated show, and I want to make sure it stays that way. Because part of the show is for you, and there's many people who are fathers, mothers, and that I don't want to cuss, because I want them to be able to play the show like many do in their car driving with their kids. They don't have to worry about what's being on here. And sometimes they almost slip and fortunately caught themselves. But we had where they're trying to interrupt this Charlie Kirk vigil, and it's so just awful. These people, we wouldn't do that to them, and if it was our side, I would call them out for that too. That is not the time or the place, and but the Democrats, they convinced themselves that they are on the right side of every issue, even though they are wrong, and so they justify their hatred and their rage that they can go out and lash out at people who are suffering, and that somehow that's okay. And now they're finding out. But this is only just the beginning. In the last segment, we had talked about Charlie Kirk show and that how JD Vance had come in and he hosted it today. And on the show, he had Stephen Miller, and he talked about some of his feelings and some of it he went through. And Miller had this to say. He said, the organized campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combine that with messaging, this is all designed to incite violence in the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate this violence. This is a vast terror movement. He is right. That is the current Democrat Party. When they call you all these nasty names, they are trying to dehumanize you. And now people are realizing it, how dangerous that is. When you sit there and they lie about Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump and many others and call you fascist and Hitler, they know that that is radicalizing these kids and justifying these violent acts. Or justifying what these Free Palestine think they're doing, where they're trying to stop people from mourning Charlie Kirk. Because the Democrats who only care about power, they don't want you to know how unpopular they are. And they used to be able to control the media and control the narrative, but they've completely lost it. All of it. And then Stephen Miller, he goes on. We are going to use every resource we have in the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name. Yes, we were at war. We were at war to save our country. The difference between us and the left is we are going to do it the legal way. Make no mistake, these riots, these protests from the left, these are not organic. As we're going to show more, is they've done it with your own tax dollars. Through like USAID into these NGOs, and then they have these radical leftists run these NGOs with your tax dollar paying these huge salaries to organize and promote all this stuff. I mean, where do you think all these shirts, banners, and signs come from? And now we're going to start looking at it as Donald Trump is poised to label Antifa correctly as domestic terrorist organization. And that now the federal government is going to look deeper into all these NGOs and where all this tax money is going and how all this organization is happening. Donald Trump is talking about RICO charges. Good. All these domestic terrorists, they must be held accountable for what they've done to this country. And then another amazing part of Charlie Kirk is what many didn't know is how much of an impact he had on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You remember back to the 2024 election, Robert F. Kennedy was running to become president, but obviously didn't work. And then there was a time when the left, even back then, they had pushed so far to the left that I remember there's this meme of Elon Musk where he was kind of standing middle left. And the left kept pushing. And all of a sudden, Elon's looking around on the right. And how many people felt like that, including like RFK? Did you know that RFK reached out to Kamala Harris, her campaign, and they told him no. They told him to go pound sand. But we did what we do. We reached out our hand. And there's many things about RFK that I don't agree with. And I talked about it then, and I talk about it now. He should not be 100% trusted because at his heart, he's still a Democrat. Now, he'd be more considered like a traditional Democrat, a traditional liberal. However, there is also some really good things about RFK. Like, he truly does care about our country, and he truly does care about the health of our nation, and finding out what is in these vaccines and what is in all these prescription drugs, and what are they doing to us? What is our food doing? The question we weren't allowed to ask for decades. And now on today, on the Charlie Kirk show, and RFK, when he shared his story, is truly amazing, because this was a lot more organized by Charlie Kirk than people realize. As this is RFK, he said, President Trump asked me if I wanted this job. I was tentative. I didn't know whether I wanted to be handled Medicaid, Medicare portion, which is the biggest, economic behemoth. But he, meaning Charlie Kirk, persuaded me that I should do it and that it would help me. And now look at what is happening in the changes of food and medication and big pharma. And then it was Charlie Kirk's idea to bring him out on the Turning Point USA with the fireworks and the epic shake that will be remembered as just one of the great political moments. That was part of what led up to Tulsi Gabbard and many others, as the Democrats and Kamala Harris kept pushing further and further and left. More and more traditional Democrats and more independents moved on to our side. And we're growing while the Democrats are shrinking. Because the Democrats are the party of political violence. So the bullets only ever only fly one way. And now they're trying to pretend that it doesn't work that way. So this is, of course, the New York Times, who are more than happy to push propaganda for the Democrat Party. They posted this. Trump officials used Charlie Kirk's death to threaten liberal groups, making unsubstantiated claims about a domestic terror movement. Oh, of course, they're so in their own elitist bubble, and they think they can just lie and say, it's just a 1-for-1. That's the lie they're trying to push, right? There's violent people on both sides. It's just a fact of life, right? It's equal. People on the right say stuff, people on the left say stuff, but it's not equal. Everyone knows it. The left is radicalized and they're violent. And then Bernie Sanders quote posted this fake from the New York Times. Yes, the president should be concerned about political violence. Well, if the Democrats were so concerned about political violence, they wouldn't have called us Nazis and fascists for years. They wouldn't have lied and called us racists and bigots and homophobes, transphobes, and all that other stuff to try to dehumanize us and put a target on our back. But now that the pendulum has swung, now all of a sudden they're trying to pretend that they want unity here. And then he goes on with their normal BS lies about, he's not talking about all political violence. Well, it's actually, that's the lie of the left, because they only want to talk about the stuff that benefits them. They're really angry that you're talking about Charlie Kirk and that you're not believing them when they try to say that this left-wing domestic terrorist was MAGA. Did they go on with the attack on the Minnesota legislator and Paul Pelosi, which of course is two things they also tried to lie about and said was some right-wing radical, which wasn't, and neither one. Okay, this was a Minnesota legislator who stood up to illegal aliens. And then the Tim Walz appointee is the one who shot her and killed her. And they never ever want to talk about that part. And they want to pretend that this guy is somehow, who was appointed by Tim Walz, the man who is friends with school shooters. And then on to Paul Pelosi. Again, very, very weird scenario there. But you show this guy in a trailer, and I think it was a BML flag, if I remember right, or a pride flag. It was something along those lines. But there's nothing connecting this guy to the right wing, is my point. But of course, they tried to lie about that too. Vance said, that our side of the aisle certainly has some crazies. He is right. But it's not equal, is what he's saying. The statistical facts of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the left. He is 100% right. See, the Democrats, they are angry because we're trying to make cities safe. The Democrats are angry because we're wanting to lock away criminals. The Democrats are angry because we want to secure a border. The Democrats are angry because we want to deport illegal aliens from our country. The Democrats are angry because we want to stop the reckless spending in the federal government. The Democrats are angry because we want to know where your tax dollars are going. The Democrats are angry because they lost power. And when you scratch a liberal, you find a fascist. As the Democrats are guilty of everything they say that we are. And when the words don't work, the next thing the Democrats do is they resort to violence. With that, we're at the top of the hour. The rest of these stories are going to go back in the stack. I really appreciate all of you being with me. It's 9,600 right now. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me that you're here. If you can, before we take off, take a moment, repost the show, and help us spread an American First message. And we'll be back again Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also subscribe to the show on Locals for only $5 a month and help us keep the lights on and continue to defeat fake news, just like these other fine patriots have. We'll see you again on Wednesday. I'm your host, CASHLOREN, and this is the CASHLOREN Show.